Hey, so my name's Kim. I'm the Director of Community Engagement with Minding the Gap. I am also the founder and owner of ESL Launch. And I want to share with you a resource that we have partnered with Minding the Gap, ESL Launch, to be able to bring some tools to help specifically with building bridges, our tutoring and mentoring program with Minding the Gap. So here's what it looks like. We've got these books, ESL Launch. Now, ESL stands for English as a Second Language, so this is designed specifically for helping teachers that are teaching students that are coming from another language. The thing was that our entire program was designed to mirror the natural learning process. So how does someone who's learning English for the first time, like think about when you were a baby, you had to be listening, hearing, you start practicing speaking, then you learn reading and writing. And so this whole program was designed essentially how a native learner learns English, and we're just replicating it so that anyone at any age can learn English. And that's why it works for working with students with building bridges. Because what you'll find is you're going to mostly be working with students who are coming from a home that's speaking English when you're working in building bridges. Sometimes not. There's students that are coming from lots of different backgrounds. But for most of our volunteers, that's who you're going to be working with. And this program works great with that material as well, or with those students as well. So here's what I'm going to show you is there's some teaching tips. I taught English for over 7 years. In Japan, my family taught for over 20 years. We built and developed this curriculum from scratch. And the great thing is I'm going to show you how to specifically use it for building bridges with the students that you're working with. So let's say that you're working with a student one-on-one. You could be working with any of the grades, so anywhere from kindergarten to 5th grade, which means their reading proficiency, their speaking ability is going to be vastly different. So we've got 3 books to help depending on where your student is at. So I'm going to start with book 1. What you're going to find is that every lesson has instructions. You are more than welcome to read the instructions and utilize it, but I'm going to also just show you a couple things so you can just jump into it real quick. Essentially, our teaching model is based off a 4-step process. So you're going to give the student the listening ability, and this depends, again, where a student is at. But the 4-step process is I model the word. So I might read it and say carrot. You know, they happen to see a carrot there too, so that kind of helps. They probably know it's a carrot. But I'm going to say carrot. The second step is that I say it and then they say it. So I say carrot, they say carrot. The third step is actually for me to help them identify this. Now, when you're working with native speakers, they probably already know what a carrot looks like and that word associated with it. So this step is probably not applicable for the students you're going to work with, but it is part of the process that's in the book. So that would be where I say, where is the carrot? The thing is, they're probably just going to point to the picture, not be finding the word, right, in this case. The fourth step is that I might just point to something and say, hey, what is this? And they're going to be able to say carrot. That's the most advanced level, is that they're just pulling it up from scratch. Now, where that comes in really applicable, let's say in book 3. In book 3, we've got more complicated sentences. So this sentence here is, the bear was happy. So if I just point to this picture, there's a good chance, unless they can read that sentence, they're not going to just remember that this bear sitting here is the bear was happy sentence, right? So then if I say, what is this? They actually have to read it. So that 4th step in the teaching model is going to become very helpful for students that are practicing their reading. So here's why I share all 4 steps, because you're going to work with students of various different levels of vocabulary, reading proficiency. So you might find that your students are in a variety of places. So maybe if you're working with a kindergarten or a 1st grader, you might want to be in book 1, and in the back and in the beginning we have an appendix of what lessons are in there. But you might want to work on their ability to match these colors and shapes to the words that are associated with them, the letters that are associated to create those words for reading practice. Or you might practice some ABCs, and you could pull up the ABC chart here. Maybe you pull up some writing material and practice writing out letters. Practice recognizing the difference between capital and lowercase letters. As you get into students that are able to read, but they're maybe struggling, obviously one of the other resources is using sight words. We have an entire page of sight words in book 3. I'm going to find it here. And we've got the 20 most common sight words all the way into the 100 most common sight words that students need to learn. And so you can practice right from here, helping them know the most important sight words that they should memorize those shapes, those letters together to be able to read really quickly. And then in book 2 and in book 3, we just have a vast variety of lessons that what I find is you can just go through with your student and say, hey, for some of my students, honestly, this is what I do. I say, I know what level they're at. They're probably at book 2 or book 3 if I'm working with like anywhere from a 3rd grader to a 5th grader. I say, pick a book. So now they get to choose their homework, right? I say, pick a book. Okay, they pick the orange one because they wanted the orange one. And then I say, hey, you can pick any page that you want in the book. So I let them sometimes pick it out. And they pick some sort of page and I say, all right, let's just start reading. Now, if they pick this one, accordion might be a little bit of a hard word for them to read. It might not, it just depends. And we start working through, and this is where if they know how to read it already, great. They say it, they recognize it. If they start struggling, I say it, they say it after me, right? So that was step 2 in the learning process or the teaching process is I say it, they say it. As we work on some of these words or some of the sentences that they pick, we can then be able to continue to increase their confidence and their ability in English and reading. So that's how I personally find it. Now, if you know where your student's at and which things they're struggling on or where they should be working, you can customize and completely pick which lesson. You don't have to give them the option. I tend to like doing that just based on the students that I've been working with, but you can pick for them and say, hey, we really need to practice these specific lessons. Let's work on these sentence patterns. Here's another quick tip though. Intersperse games and fun into it. So make sure that you don't just go for a long, long time into academics because that can get really fatiguing. That's my second point is end while it's fun. So to be honest, what you'll find in these lessons is that there's often multiple pages of similar sentence patterns that you can work on. End while it's still fun. To be honest, just do 1 or 2 pages. Don't do the entire lesson because they're going to get tired of reading the same type of sentence pattern over and over again. And you know what? If you stop at 1 page or 2 pages, they got lots of practice in, and then jump to another lesson, jump to another concept. So it keeps the engagement interesting. It keeps their time frames short, so you get their attention span, and it keeps it really enjoyable for them and honestly for you as well. So those are some tips on being able to utilize ESL Launch in your tutoring process. Again, you got 3 books in every single tutoring box that we have with Minding the Gap. I hope you enjoy.